Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another post-game show here at the Hockey Raiders YouTube channel. We're covering, of course, the Stanley Cup Final here at Colorado Avalanche, Tampa Bay Lightning. The Avalanche have won another game. They are now up 3-1 in the series on the cusp of their first Stanley Cup since 2001, going back home where they've won handily in the first two games. And Nazem Kadri returned to the lineup and, of course, scores the overtime goal to bring him to the brink of winning a Stanley Cup. So again, joined in by Kerry Collins, Jim Bay. Guys, this was a really good. This is a really good game. Very evenly played, probably up until the overtime. Kerry, we'll start with you with Nazem Kadri scoring the overtime winner. How do you feel this game went for the Avalanche? And of course, Kadri scoring the game winner.
Yeah, when I heard he was going to play, I was interested to see how much they'd use him, and he played almost 19 minutes. So yeah. It seemed like outside of not being able to take faceoffs, it was total green light. And, they were getting a lot of pressure. Colorado was in that overtime for sure. And that play that scored the goal, a great stretch pass, from Kuemper up to MacKinnon. And then MacKinnon finds him and just gets, it goes totally top shelf. That was a great shot, a great goal. Mm-hmm. People didn't realize it right away, probably. There was a little bit of, uncertainty there. But, yeah. It just goes to show, the effect that he can kind of have on this team. He didn't have as many hits as he usually did, which doesn't mm-hmm. surprise me. But, just another huge goal in a big spot for that guy. He did it all year. He did it, against St. Louis, got hurt against Edmonton, and now his first chance back, he does it again. So, just an important player for Colorado all season. You can tell they were tickled to have him back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we talked about the guys coming back potentially. Braden Point, of course, is out again. But we talked about Kadri potentially returning sometime in this series and the impact he could have. Well, he's had a pretty big impact, overtime winner, and now bringing him to the point of a Stanley Cup. So massive. He was pretty good throughout the game, I thought. So for a guy coming back off of surgery from his thumb that, restricted his faceoffs, like you said, but that shot was really good. Didn't restrict that. So I thought he looked really good in his return, and too bad we couldn't see Point versus Kadri in the same games. But Jim, Tampa Bay Lightning now down 3-1 in this series. What were your takeaways from this game?
It was a very evenly matched game, but we'll probably talk a little bit about this later. Again, they're still struggling on the special teams. They gave up a power play goal. Granted, it wasn't, kind of a typical Colorado. All of their goals were, you give Colorado credit. They were hardworking, attack the net kind of goals. And Tampa Bay played very well. It was pretty apparent in the overtime that between the injuries, maybe down to a defenseman, the fatigue factor and the fact that Colorado is younger and faster, mm-hmm. all of that, I think it was just a matter of time. I'm just sitting there waiting like, okay, when's this going to happen? Because it's going to happen eventually. Very disappointing again for Tampa. It's a very difficult, if not impossible road to win 3 straight, against any NHL team, let alone this team. So, if they get healthy, there's a lot of ifs coming, down the road, but they definitely have an uphill battle. They have Vasilevskiy. He played great tonight, but it still wasn't enough. So, I think in this point, it's going to be a matter of time. Will it be game 5, game 6? Who knows?
Yeah, and the thing is that Colorado has 2 out of the next 3 at home, too, and they're seems to be unbeatable there. So it's going to be tough for Tampa to come back from this if they do. Let's talk about the goaltending. Darcy Kuemper he was pulled in the last game, so we were talking about who would come back and who'd be the starter in this game. Well, Kuemper came back, had a heck of a game. He was probably like I say, the best I've seen him, I would say, in the playoffs so far. And like you said, that stretch pass to start that play in overtime. Kerry, what did you think about Darcy Kuemper's bounce back game today?
I thought he was in trouble at the start when 30 seconds and he faces 4 shots. It was I was kind of like, uh-oh, this could be a long night. That first goal, you can't really pin on him at all. I mean, he made 3 saves. Like, usually you see a goal in 36 seconds. It means they scored on the first shot of the night. Nope, it was the 4th one. And then he is the one that kept them in it through that first period. They were so lucky. I thought Colorado was lucky to get out of that first period only down a goal when they get outshot 17-4. There haven't been that many periods like that this season for them, particularly in the playoffs. So for them to get out only down 1 after that, it was kind of like, okay, exhale, kind of type thing. And, he was really seeing it tonight. I mean, I think he made 36 saves. He didn't have to face as much as Vasilevskiy clearly in the overtime, but it's just they need him back there to do that. And his last game in particular was a good indication. You knew there was going to be a ton of shots thrown at the net again because it seems like Tampa's really playing with a lot more jam. So for him to come back and, after just 2 days ago getting yanked, speculation that he might not start. I mean, it was a really big spot for him. And that's what's putting them one win away. He was the best player for them, I think, tonight. You look at Tampa Bay, they're going into overtime. Colorado hasn't scored a goal on them that came off of a stick. It's like just 2 really good bounces, but it gets them into that situation to where they have a chance to win, and Kadri pulls it out. So that was Kuemper was the guy that had him in the game. Hopefully was their first star, because he was great. And he was the reason that they're in this position where they're only 1 game away from picking up their 3rd Stanley Cup.
Yeah. Jim Vasilevskiy, I mean, since that game, he let in 7 goals. He's been amazing. I mean, he's probably been Tampa's best player. And that's all they could. They had to get bodies. They had to get those ugly goals, those greasy goals to score goals on him. How'd you feel his, Vasilevskiy today?
Oh, he did. He was great. Again, the goals that, all 3 of them, they were hustle, grinded out goals by Colorado. They got good bounces. You get good bounces when you work hard in front of the net and you do things like that. So it's hard to fault them on any of them. There's no soft goals. He made, I don't know how many saves he ended up with. They were both well into the 30s, into the overtime. He was doing what Tampa Bay hoped he would do. And, if he has any chance, he needs to continue doing that because, the onslaught, they're just going to, Colorado's going to be so psyched up going into that game. And again, we're going to get into that first 10-minute scenario where they're just going to be flying around the ice. So, it's too bad that, they couldn't pull it out for him and for them in that. But, it is what it is. You got to give Colorado a ton of credit in this game.
Especially the overtime, they showed why they're the better team and the why they won both the first 2 games, because their speed, and that's what they did in the overtime. They looked faster, and like you said, Tampa was dealing with 5 defensemen, so that's a good segue into the next thing is the injuries that Tampa Bay has to go into the next game with. Cernak was out after the second period. Well, in the second period, he sat on the bench. And then didn't start the overtime. Down to 5 defensemen. Sergachev played a ridiculous amount of minutes and blocked a ton of shots too. And then what are these injuries? And then Cirelli is another one where looked like he got cut by his own teammate's skate and had to go to the dressing room. Came back, didn't take face-offs, so obviously he was hurting. And then he showed a clip in the dressing room. He was having a hard time getting his jersey on too. So how are these injuries going to affect the Lightning going forward? They're already missing Point and now missing a big defenseman. and now another centerman potentially that can't take draws. You got Brandon Hagel taking draws. So what do you think about the injuries? They're gonna have to adjust.
Yeah, it'll be tough because getting Colorado being the home team, they'll get the change so they can get whatever face up. Not that I don't think you can put. I think Hagel did a pretty decent job for not being a main face-off guy, but when they see him out there, Colorado can throw out whoever they want pretty much. It's going to be tough. You don't know in a couple of days what that's going to be like. We'll have to find out tomorrow what they're skating. For Tampa Bay, it looks like for Colorado too, we might see a Foot skating in Colorado, but unfortunately it won't be Adam for Colorado. It'll be his son Cal for Tampa. That'll be a little interesting. They've got a few guys from Syracuse. The rosters are pretty deep at this point. A handful of guys that they could put in there if they need to, with some experience this year. But again, it's going to be a very uphill battle. You can tell throughout. Colorado wore them down. Going to play in Colorado won't be any easier for them. If they're going to stay in it, they're just going to have to, do another grind out kind of thing. And hope, at this, in that game, the puck bounces their way a little bit more. So, again, the uphill battle kind of thing, and the injuries are mounting. Block shots again. Would we get up to 30 block shots plus, I think, by the end of the night? Their willingness to give up a body at some point is going to, pay a heavy price, and it's starting to at this point.
Yeah. And on Colorado's side, Kerry, I mean, now they got Nazem Kadri back. Their injury, pretty much, I think it's just Girard out now.
Yeah, Girard and Burakovsky.
Yeah, Burakovsky's another one.
The hand.
Yeah. So Burakovsky and Girard, which is not a massive amount of injuries now.
No, when you look at the way that, Kadri bounces back, that, helps ease the burden of losing Burakovsky. But Girard, they missed Girard, but Bowen Byram has just gone on this steady increase of, he's gotten better and better and better as the playoffs have gone on, as he's played. And I mean, it was a nasty injury to Girard, but, they've had other guys, fill in. Gosh, Josh Manson's been great, this entire series. Bowen Byram, I just think, has just steadily gotten better and better and better. So they have been able to sort of shore up some of that stuff, and they're getting people back where it really stings because Tampa Bay's, going in the opposite direction. Yeah. It's like the scale is, bouncing back up, or going down back towards where Tampa Bay is really going to be struggling here if those guys aren't, if neither of those guys in particular that got hurt tonight. I mean, I don't even think Cernak played 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. So it's like, if they don't have a guy like that back, it just makes it so hard because he's so important, he probably blocked 4 or 5 shots, before, the injury happened. The injury happened on a blocked shot. It's, when Colorado has everybody, they're tough. And when Nazem Kadri gets firing and gets clicking and things like that, they're really, really hard to stop. So going back home where the top line just was electric in the first 2 games, and got slowed down a little bit, by the, Cirelli's the guy that heading up that line that kind of slowed him down. So if they don't have him, it's just it's an uphill climb. It'll be interesting to see what happens over the next, day and a half here to see if any of those guys can come back and, they can rehabilitate them a bit, because you can only, and I think tonight kind of proved it, you can only lean on Vasilevskiy so much. And I think that's gone, you could say that even over the last couple of years. Yeah, it's easy to point at those clinching games, but the first goal goes off a skate, second goal goes off a leg, and then the next thing you know, you're fighting for essentially your life in overtime, because if you lose, you're down 3-1. So couple of bad breaks, not only on the goals, but on the injury standpoint too, especially with Colorado getting healthier.
Yeah. And Byram almost scored the game winner too.
Like crossbar.
That would have been a good story too, Byram scoring the winner. it's good. We're talking about defensemen. So let's talk about a couple of the big guys on both sides who are now both Norris Trophy winners. Hedman was already one, but Makar got his yesterday at the NHL Awards. And now we do have two Norris Trophy winners going against each other, and they both had a heck of a game. Jim, Victor Hedman, he had a bad first two games. No one can debate that. He probably the worst I've seen him in the playoffs, in the first two. But since then, he's looked like more of himself. Like he's been jumping up in the play. How do you feel Victor Hedman has bounced back? He definitely has bounced back.
Oh, he's bounced back very well. And not turning the puck over. He had some, bad turnovers early on. It was interesting. There was somebody who speculated, I think one of the, Tampa Bay beat writers or Twitter person, and said, he hadn't been the same since he took that shot in the head from Lafreniere in the Rangers series. And you kind of wonder if that had anything to do with it. I think Colorado had a lot to do with it, but it could have been a combination. He might have just been getting his feet under him, but he definitely looked like, the Victor Hedman that we were expecting when we did the preview show. We said, oh yeah, we have Hedman versus Makar. And, this is the game we finally got from both of those guys. You could say here are two Norris Trophy winners, and here they played. The shot that he scored, I thought, oh, is that a soft goal by Kuemper? But it was actually a pretty nice backhander by Hedman. And he does have that, quick little shot, and it might have caught Kuemper by surprise. But, regardless, that's the plays that he hadn't been making up to that point. He's had those opportunities and haven't been making them. Tonight he did. So, at least for Tampa, they got that going for him in game 5, and they're going to need it. They're going to need a spark from somebody. And, it probably, would come from Hedman. So it's good to see him get back. And it's, good to see those two Norris tries. They're both excellent. And they both had excellent years. Makar is definitely deserving, but, a lot of people have talked about, there's a lot of good defensemen out there, and it's good that we're seeing, two of the best of, on the, the top stage of the NHL.
Yeah. And the voting, like Kerry mentioned before recording here, and the voting, Hedman was third in voting. And then you got Roman Josi, who didn't win, and then Cale Makar, who of course won the Norris. And Kerry Makar, we've talked a lot about this guy, and he had another great game after probably having his worst game in game 2 by his standards. What did you think about Makar's game in game 4 or it would have been game 3? He had that bad game.
Yeah, and he was kind of all over the place once again. That is, that was really, really good Makar. Yeah. He's flying all over the place. He got another assist. I think he's got 20 assists in the playoffs now. Kind of to go back, just to mention something about the Hedman goal. I don't think Kuemper expected that backhand at all. And, no. And it was right in the perfect spot. I think it kind of caught him off guard where, conversely, Makar's still getting his shots off, still doing all that stuff. He's just running. Vasilevskiy is just completely shutting him down, but he still had those runs where all of a sudden, boom, he's by two guys, and you're like, holy cow. And every time you see it, it kind of surprises you, but he does it 3-4 times a game. But when he's playing like that, it's tough, especially when he's out. He and Taves, I thought Taves was good too. Both those guys, played over a half an hour. They're just so good. It's just so tough when they're on the ice. And then, to see Victor Hedman come back like that after the start that he sort of had to this series, it was kind of like you said, this is what everybody was expecting out of that matchup. So I just think, I hope that continues because it's good hockey and everybody loves to watch it. But it just seems like once Makar gets going, he doesn't, once Makar gets going, he's pretty tough to slow down, and it's just so consistent. He doesn't ever have these shaky stretches where he has 3 bad games. You look, there's only been twice this season where he went 3 straight games without an assist. I mean, that's just an absurd number for a defenseman.
Yeah.
You think there'd be a 5-game stretch in there somewhere,
Yeah.
in the middle of January or whatever. But it was like, he's just been so steady and so consistent that, I mean, even when he has a bad game here and there, you just know the next night he's going to be better.
Yeah.
And it's, it was a very close race for the Norris and stuff. You can talk about that all you want, but tonight was a game that he kind of showed why that he's in those conversations.
Yeah. And like I say, I wish we could have had that from game 1, but it's great to see it finally here, and both sides having a great game. So we'll see if we can see it again in game 5, and it's gonna be a fun game, even though Tampa's down 3-1, and one team is almost in the Stanley Cup, going to win a Stanley Cup. But I think this series has actually been pretty good, apart from that 7-0 game, I would say. So it's going to be fun to see what'll happen. Before we wrap up, I want to talk about 2 guys that, last game Cirelli did score, but before weren't scoring. Nathan MacKinnon scored his first goal in the Stanley Cup Final, his first ever in a Stanley Cup Final, and it was a weird one too. They thought the Landeskog scored it, but start with MacKinnon. Kerry, I mean, it's probably, he had a really good game again. Finally scores a goal, even though it wasn't really, it was a greasy one, but he'll take it. What'd you think about MacKinnon's game today?
Yeah, he's just, he's going to come out, and just about every single night he's going to get a half dozen shots on goal or more. Going into this series, he was leading the playoffs in shots on goal by like 25 or 26 shots. Like, it wasn't even close. They'd played a dozen games. I think he had north of 80 shots on goal coming into this series. But you look at that goal, yeah, but I mean, greasy goal, whatever, but it's another power play goal. And they just keep doing that. I mean, it's 5 games in a row, I think, with a power play goal. For MacKinnon, that's his 6th power play goal of the playoffs. He only had 7 during the regular season. He's an assist machine on the power play. During the regular season, he probably had 20 assists. Or around 20 assists in the regular season. But yeah, 6 power play goals for him, just in these playoffs. You're talking only 16 games. And It just seems like every time they're out there, they're going to get a chance. And I mean, you could tell even when Tampa killed that second one, that crowd went bananas. Like, they know what's going on too. And it's like, holy cow, they stopped him, because there's this sense that, oh, here's a power play. They're going to tie it back up, or they're going to score here. It just has felt that way for the entirety of these playoffs, since the second round, since they dropped the puck against St. Louis. So, I mean, they only had 2 penalties, but when you look in a 3-2 overtime game, that one that they got was huge. It was a huge goal, and, greasy or not, he's in the right spot. And that's usually Gabriel Landeskog's spot. That's his office. So, so it was like the greasy goals. It's like the old adage, they never ask how, they only ask how many. So it's, I mean, it was good for him to score for sure, but in hindsight, when you look at how this game wrapped up, that was such an enormous goal when the chances, because of the goaltenders, were so thin. And I don't know, he's the last guy you want to get going on a goal scoring streak, especially when you're on the ropes in the Stanley Cup Final. So it was good for him to get a goal, but it was even bigger for the bigger picture for him, for sure.
Yeah. Talking about Jim, I mean, this is a good talk about the special teams. And the other player I want to talk about is Anthony Cirelli, who's a big part of that penalty kill and a big part of shutting MacKinnon's line down. He had his 2nd goal in 2 games after not scoring for a long time. When you think about Cirelli, I mean, he did get hurt, but he battled through, came back. What did you think about his game?
Well, yeah, again, Cirelli with the 2, kind of grinded out goals is, it's what Tampa Bay needed at both those times. They got the start they wanted today really quick. Before, that's what you want. And the fact that he's been able to score the goals, and lead a line that's been able to, contain, MacKinnon and that group has been really good. But they still struggling on the penalty kill. And, as they mentioned in the broadcast, they're not clearing the puck. And again, that's part of, Colorado's speed. And, to me, I said the whole game, they're getting out hustled quite a bit and outworked for those pucks as well. Tampa Bay's a little bit too passive, and, they kind of showed in, especially in the 6-2 game when they're not quite so passive. Yes, you can still play defense and still, be aggressive. That's when they're best. But I think that's going to be kind of the telling story when you look back through the, Stanley Cup, that Tampa Bay was not able to, contain Colorado's, power play and, conversely not do anything themselves on their own power play. I think that's going to be the big, kicker for Tampa Bay when this is all said and done.
Well, special teams decide games. And like Kerry said, that goal was basically the difference in the game. And that's been a difference in a lot of the games for Tampa Bay. And even in that Rangers series and the Toronto series too. I mean, this can't seem to get going on a power play, scoring a power play, and then has turned into a bad penalty kill too. So it's definitely a big storyline we'll probably be talking about afterwards. So we'll see. Now, just to end it, are we going to be talking about a Stanley Cup victory after the next post game, or are we going to talk about a 3-2? 3-2 series. Jim, we'll start with you.
Oh yeah, I would predict that Colorado will be skating around with the Stanley Cup on Friday night. I think there's just too many things that are going well for them and not for Tampa in order for that not to happen. But as I've kind of said on other post-game shows before in the different series, is Colorado better come out to play, because these guys are just they're not going to roll over. You may run them off the ice because you're faster and you're better and they're tired, but they won't give up. They haven't ever quit, in the past 3 years. They've been down different series, not this much before, but this is a team that has, it's a cliche. They have a tremendous amount of heart and they have a tremendous amount of pride, and, they're going to come out and make Colorado work for it, every step of the way. So, yeah, I think Colorado is going to be, raising the cup, but, I don't think it's going to be easy as maybe a lot of people think it's going to be.
I definitely agree with that. Kerry, what do you think? Stanley Cup for the Colorado Avalanche in our next post game, or are we talking about a 3-2 series?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens with those injuries that we talked about earlier, because that will definitely have an impact. But the way that they played at home those first two games, points me towards, I would lean towards taking Colorado for sure. And exactly like Jim said, I mean, I don't think it's going to be easy. I will be shocked if there's another 7-0 game. But I just think that they're really firing. They're really playing well at home. They're just finding a way. I mean, they never led in this game. They never led in this game until the buzzer sounded. So it was like they're just finding a way to do it. And same thing in the first game. They felt like they were in charge, and then Tampa, comes back and ties it up at 3. And I mean, they're just finding a way to do it right now. And it seems like all of the blocked shots and the pressure and all that stuff is starting to finally take its toll, all of that plus everything else, just you've already gone through the playoffs. I mean, everybody's dinged up right now. It just seems like those injuries are piling up a little bit more on the Tampa Bay side. And I mean, like Jim mentioned earlier, both guys are making north of 30 saves. It's just that the offense is flying around in this one. And even though it's a 3-2, might seem like a lower scoring game because it was overtime. And it just seems like when you get in those shootouts, Colorado always finds a way. It just seems like, just got more shots, and it's like they've got more when you get into those shootouts, and that's a tough game for any team to win against them. And if they're doing that again at home, it's just going to be tough to win at home, or for Tampa to win on the road. When Colorado's at home, it's hard. And Colorado's been great on the road too. They've only got the one loss, and now they're in a position to, and by winning those games on the road, that's what's got them in a position to win this thing at home.
Yeah. And just quickly, if that does happen, Stanley Cup's awarded, who's got the Conn Smythe, Jim?
Makar.
I
know it's chalky, but I think he's been the engine that's driven Colorado throughout these playoffs.
Yeah, it's a good choice. He's probably leading the way right now. But Kerry, who you got?
I agree. I think it's Makar is probably, just from start to finish in the playoffs, he's been incredible, and I think he's been the engine that's sort of driven him. If it ends up being MacKinnon, I don't know. I don't think anyone will be surprised either. I think it's probably between those two guys. If Colorado wins, so I lean towards Makar. I mean, he's had a great year, as evidenced last night. He got get a pretty big trophy on stage last night with the Norris. So if he just keeps going and doing the same thing, and they close it out tomorrow, I just think it's his. I think it's his trophy. I wouldn't be surprised if MacKinnon won it, because he's been awesome too. But Makar's got 20 assists in the playoffs. He had 10 points in the first round. He was really solid against St. Louis. He was awesome against Edmonton, and he's been awesome in this series. So I just think it's his. I would lean towards giving the trophy to him for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's ironic. It's pretty cool, actually. He'd be the first defenseman since Hedman to win the Conn Smythe. So there you go. Thanks, guys, for another post-game show. Of course, we'll be back after Game 5, either talking about a Stanley Cup win or going back to Tampa Bay with the 3-2 series. So it's going to be fun. Make sure hitting that QR code that's up on the screen right now. Check out thehockeywriters.com. Lots of stuff on there. Like I say, the draft is coming up, free agency, lots of fun stuff coming right after the Stanley Cup's awarded. So there's going to be tons of coverage coming up already. Tons of stuff there as we lead up to the draft. So make sure checking that out, and we will see you after Game 5.